This is a video a lot of you have been asking me to do, and it's a video that I've actually promised I'm going to do. So here we are. I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive and an analysis into Jim Ratcliffe's ownership of Nice. For a lot of United fans, myself included, I'm looking at Jim Ratcliffe and thinking, you know what? He could be a dream owner. But would that dream actually be a dream? What I'm going to do in this video is run through everything. Speak about the positives, the negatives, the transfer strategy, the people he's appointed at the club, what the fans think, what players have worked, what players haven't worked. It's going to be a longer video, so please, if you would, drop a like on this one. These sorts of videos take a long old time to research, but I hope it should make a cracking piece of content. So let's dive into it, and let's talk about Jim Ratcliffe's ownership of Nice. Now, Nice's last trophy was the French Ligue, French Cup, back in 1996, and their last actual top league Division 1 trophy was back in the 50s. But they are a club who have been in and around the top 3 and 4 a few times in the last 10 years or so. It's not as if they've just been sitting at the bottom of the league. And Jim Ratcliffe completed his takeover back in August 2019, and this is what he said at the time. He said, "We were absolutely delighted about acquiring Nice. It's been quite a long journey getting here, but it is unique, and we were determined to complete the purchase of the club. We have looked at a lot of clubs in the manner we look at businesses in Ineos for value and potential, and Nice fulfills that criteria. With some sensible, measured investment, we want to establish Nice as a team that competes in European club competition on a regular basis, and importantly, sustains it. Nice has a great history in this tradition with a passionate fan base whom will play an important role for our journey." The Allianz, well, we don't need to read too much into it, don't read the whole thing. That was the main aim for Radcliffe with Nice straight away. Get European football. And what we're going to do now, take a look at this as well. This is quite a cute video. This is him being greeted by some kids when he went to the stadium for the first time. And you'll notice a certain Patrick Vieira there as well. So what I'm going to do next is quickly dive into, I'm going to look at the structure of the club, who he's kept in, who he's got rid of, and then there's so much in this video. But please, if you would, give me a minute. Just want to say a big shout out to Legend. Legend, who reached out to me. They're supporting me by sponsoring this video, and they're a company that sell t-shirts. They also don't sell me, they sell jeans. Right, so fitted jeans, and I'm not sure if you're the same as me, but I really struggle to get jeans that genuinely fit me. And Legend, yeah, I've been wearing these for a few weeks now. I like to test it all out to do it properly. I don't want to sort of endorse something to you that I don't think is genuinely good. Legend is good. It fits really nicely. And look, Black Friday's coming up. We've got Christmas coming up. Genuinely, it'll be a good gift for that person, that man, you know, and maybe woman as well, that struggles to get those jeans that fit. That's where Legend steps in. I'll leave the link to their website in the description, but big up to Legend. Decent products. I genuinely would recommend. Big shout out to Legend for helping make this video happen. But let's talk about the structure of the club. Now, this is the current ownership structure. Let me get that up nice full screen for you there. That's not full screen. Where is it? There. That's what happens when things don't work properly. Anyway, let's pretend it never happened. Now, interestingly enough, you can see here, the chairman, Jean-Pierre Riviere, he was kept on from the previous structure. You've got CEO there, Fabrice Bouquet, a sporting director there of Florent Guillot. You don't particularly need to know too much about this, but this is the overall structure. You can see they've got an academy director, pre-formation director, head of medical staff, legal director, commercial director, club media director. It's properly structured, unlike Manchester United. Now, this, I think, is an interesting thing to dive into. This is an interview with Bob Radcliffe, who, of course, is Jim Ratcliffe's brother and was brought in with him to help run the club. This was an interview that happened. Let's scroll up here. This was an interview that happened back in July 2020 in the boardroom with Nice. And it's a conversation with Bob Radcliffe about sort of the plans and the ambitions of what they wanted to do with the ownership of Nice. And this is what they said. We can run through this together. While Ineos is currently bankrolling Nice and Lausanne, the eventual goal for the French club is to be self-sustaining. We'll still need to write checks in order to prime the club, but you can't do that forever. And we certainly wouldn't enjoy doing that forever. At some point, it needs to generate its own success financially. So the concept there of what their ownership of Nice would look like would be bankrolling the early growth, getting it to a point where it sustains itself, and then sort of withdrawing some of the investment because it's then worked. It's kind of how investment works anyway. He said, he was asked there about the shirt sponsorship, which is currently Ineos. He said, economically, once we feel the Ineos brand presence has been built up enough here, if we could get a significant name on the front of the shirt, we'd be silly not to pursue that route. So I imagine if, hypothetically, that happened to Manchester United, it'll be Ineos on the front of the shirt, and then after a couple of years, they would then bring in a new big sponsor. Or maybe they just go big on the sponsor straight away. Depends what they want with Ineos, if it happened. And he said this as well about, getting Nice to where Nice should be as far as the ownership goes. To join that group, we need to do better commercially. We also need to be clever in terms of developing players and then trading them, which is a big part of, well, not just French football, but football in general, really. It's a business model which is Dortmund are incredible at it. I can't remember any other names off the top of my head, but Red Bull are very good at it now as well. When you can't get to the top table and be that like state-owned elite level club, doesn't have to just be state-owned, but state, you know what I mean? Big funds. If you can't get there, this is a business model that you can go towards. Now, before they took over Nice, it was a bit up and down, I think we can call it. This article here from May 2019 was sort of questioning about some mysterious payments that were going in and out of the club. I wouldn't say they were unsustainable because, they built a new training ground, which we'll go into in a little bit. But in terms of the football management side of things, let's quickly run through that side and how much change and turmoil there's been there. Now, it was Patrick Vieira who was there when Jim Ratcliffe took over. And he was promptly sacked. Not promptly sacked, but he was sacked, 5-6 months later after I think they went on a 5-game losing streak. Now, he was replaced by the assistant, I think, is it Urcia? I think it's Urcia, yeah. He stayed in for 6 months, and then they brought in Christian Gautier. Now, Christian Gautier was the manager of Lille, who won the championship with Lille. Very smart appointment, very good appointment, an appointment which eventually saw him just get nicked because he was at Nice there. They were happy with him. Off to PSG, I trot. And he's now the current manager of PSG, and he was replaced by Lucien Favre, the old Dortmund manager. And it's been a bit of a mixed season. I'm not going to run. I'm going to run through the transfer strategy, and probably this is where my biggest concern would lie. Not just with the transfer strategy, but with who's running it. I would say this is probably, if you're going to take one concern away from this video, I would say it's this. And then we'll run through how Nice have actually performed in the league. But in terms of players they brought in, I mean, there's been hits and there's been misses. Casper Dolberg is a successful signing. They've sold some players as well. St. Maximin, they sold to Newcastle. Ross Barkley came in this summer, I believe. This is Diop, who was brought in from Monaco. You've got Kasper Schmeichel coming in from Nice. And it's when it comes to investment, they have invested. Not massive, huge amounts. But the investment has gone up at Nice. If we go here, this is the first year where Jim Ratcliffe owned Nice, right? 52 million spent, 23 million brought into the club. A net spend of just under 30 million. Up here, net spend of just over 10 million. More being spent than being brought into the club. In 2021-22, 55 million spent and 25 million brought into the club. A net spend of 30. And then this summer, 70 million spent with only 33 coming in. So there's positive net spends every year. And if we were to rewind a little bit and we look at what Nice was operating like beforehand, 28 million euros spent, 61 million coming in from sales. They sold more than they bought. Year before, pretty much bang on. 26 million euros spent, 27 million brought in. Year before, 15 million, pretty much the same thing. You see the pattern emerging here. There's no doubt that they've invested. They haven't invested maybe the mega amounts that fans expected. But it's not, and I think United fans can relate to this, it's not about what you spend. It's about spending correctly. And this is where I would say I've definitely got a concern, having read into this now. Because I'm sure some of you will notice who this man is, but if you don't, this is Dave Brailsford. Now, Dave Brailsford was the old head of Sky, the cycling team that dominated it all, and then he got disgraced, didn't he? And he sort of disappeared from the cycling world. Now, he was brought in by Jim Ratcliffe, who, of course, owns the cycling team. I think he they worked together? I mean, presumably they worked together. I didn't actually look that bit up. But anyway, Dave Brailsford has been working at Nice since the summer. And he was brought in as a sort of like director of sport. He's not actually down on the official organization structure, but he sort of oversaw what happened this summer. And if we go over here, we see some quotes here from Julien Laurens on day of Brailsford and what he's doing there. I think this is where a concern of mine definitely exists. This is what he said. He said, look, I think Brailsford's making a lot of mistakes in Nice. That is very much counterproductive to what the project is and what it should be. He reminds me a little bit of Sir Clive Woodward when England won the Rugby World Cup. He thought he could just go into any sport, including football, and be successful. It just doesn't happen like that. That was silly recruitment in terms of the summer. Lawrence went on, you have to explain to me what the logic behind it was, what the idea was, and where they are going, because it doesn't really make much sense. Maybe you can make sense of it when you know Dave Brailsford is there. He clearly thinks he can do a good job in football. And if we rewind here and we take a look at what they did this summer, this is what he's complaining about. They went big. First of all, they spent big, but they brought in a lot of. They got Nicolas Pepe on loan from Arsenal. They got Aaron Ramsey in. They got Kasper Schmeichel in. They went a bit big. It's not exactly worked. And Julien Laurens is heavily critical of him, and he's not the only one here. So is this? Is it Chris Entwistle? Find out his name. Luke Entwistle, who is a journalist specialising in French football, who lives in Nice. He was speaking about Brailsford here, and I think this offers a bit of insight, and I hope this video is offering insight, because I'm certainly learning a bit about it. And it feels like the Brailsford appointment was appointing somebody that he knew rather than somebody who was right for the job. Now, that's a concern. The issue is in perceptions of Brailsford, potentially not because of the role he has, but rather because he's the face of the Ineos regime, says Entwistle, and therefore any shortcomings are being directed towards Brailsford. I don't get the impression he's very disliked, but he's basically front of house at a massive football club in the region, and for that he absorbs the criticism. Brailsford is someone who Ratcliffe considers his right-hand man, a big piece of the Ineos project. He wants it in safe hands. But the fans are disappointed in how Ratcliffe's regime is going, and investment hasn't been as momentous as expected. As I said, maybe fans were expecting big money to come in, spending like PSG can. That's not quite happened. There's no doubt the investment's increased, but maybe not to the level that fans were hoping for. And a little bit more insight here in terms of why Brailsford might have been brought in. Because he was quite famous for bringing something called like the marginal gains approach in cycling, which was a big part of how Team Sky ended up dominating, amongst other things. And this is what Luke Entwistle said. He goes, that's a fair comparison. There's a massive drive in France towards physical and general fitness and creating more cohesive sporting projects. The idea of the project is to bring about elite athleticism, and that's what Brailsford is doing. There's stuff on the club's social media channels welcoming different sports to the club, as well as psychologists and fitness experts. That's all down to what Brailsford is doing. There's a lot of focus paid to technical and sporting directness in football now, and that's also what Brailsford has been trying to address. So kind of a root cause analysis in terms of that's what Jim Ratcliffe has brought him into the club to do. Okay, yes, analyse what's good at the club and what's bad at the club. And the fact that he was probably, by the sounds of it, involved in what happened over the summer, that's not where his expertise lies. And that's what United have to get right with these new owners, is we have to bring the right people in. It's not the only reason, but it's a major reason why City have been successful. They brought in the right people to work in the boardroom in every single position. So I'm a little bit concerned there about what he did with Brailsford. I mean, he wouldn't get away with that at a level of United. But it's interesting to understand that part of it. Now, in terms of how Nice have been getting on in the league, it's been a mixed bag. I think we can call it a mixed bag. If we go and look at the 3 years before he took over in 2019-20, go down here, 16-17, they finished third, which is their highest position in the league. Well, maybe not forever, but certainly in these like 10 years. Then they finished 8th. Year before he came in, they finished 7th. Then he came in, and that was the year they finished 5th. Year after, they finished 9th. Year after that, they went back up to 5th, and currently, they're 9th in the league, 8 points off 5th place. They're not having the best of seasons, and I think we can draw, going back here, to a bit of an unsuccessful summer. They may have spent a lot. Certainly, that's the most they've spent, 70 million. Yep, that's the most they spent under Jim Ratcliffe. But like United fans will all know, it's not just about spending. It's about spending correctly. So it's been a mixed bag for Jim Ratcliffe in terms of the success of the transfer window, in terms of the success of the structure he's been putting in. But there have been some successes. And when you look at Nice as a football club, they've just built a brand new training complex in like 2017, I think it was. Like state of the art. They've got that sorted. They've got a cracking stadium there in the Allianz Riviera, I think it's called. Decent stadium. Doesn't need to build that infrastructure. He needs to build, as his brother Bob explained earlier, they want to build Nice into a team which sustains itself in European football every single year. And that's the aim. That's the aim of the ownership with Nice. And fans, by the sounds of it, want more investment. I don't know whether they're going to get it. But this year, it goes to show with the Brailsford situation and how much they spent and kind of on the wrong players. It hasn't got it all right at Nice. It hasn't been perfect by any way, shape or form. It hasn't been terrible either. I wouldn't look at Nice, my conclusion to all of this is what I'm trying to say. I wouldn't look at Jim Ratcliffe's ownership of Nice as proof that he can't own Manchester United. But at the same time, I can look at his ownership of Nice and go, there's some concerns there I've got in terms of the structure of the people that he brought in and that him giving responsibility to the wrong people. It's all about bringing the right people who are specialists in their roles and letting them shine there. That's what will need to happen at Manchester United. Jim Ratcliffe aside, we need to make sure that we mimic that City success of bringing it. City brought in so much of the people who have worked with Guardiola at Barcelona, and that structure allowed Guardiola to just focus on the football. Didn't have to worry about anything else. That's what has to happen with our new owner, whether it's Jim Ratcliffe, whether it's Dubai, whether it's Apple, whether it's anybody. The ownership structure, the board structure, the power structure, it's one of the fundamentals. I think that's been a bit of a mistake there that Jim Ratcliffe has been making so far at Nice. Rather people that he trusts rather than kind of what he needs. And that can't happen at Manchester United. So I hope this video has helped you understand a bit more about the Nice. It certainly helped me understand it a bit more. I feel like I can talk about it now. So please, if you would, drop a like on the video. As I said, these videos do take a long time to research. I like doing them. Videos on YouTube should be insightful. They should sometimes be educational and help you understand a complicated topic a little bit more, which I hope this is done. So anyway, you let me know what you think about the Jim Ratcliffe ownership of Nice now that you watch this video. And has it changed your mind on him and United? Or you let me know.